Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Mortgage Tech Talks. Today, I speak with Scott Larter from BrokerBot. We start with actually his sales history from selling Blackberries. He transitioned from the physical to the non physical world. And although those were different, the key principles, the three key things that you need to be doing in sales and how they translated. We quickly then talk about really where BrokerBot came from, the story and how it kind of came to life, how he was kind of going from a bunch of no's to some very strong yeses in a very short period of time. We talk a little bit about the market dynamics today and how important trust is and how to build that trust. And as part of that trust, why data is such an important element and why he believes his data is among the best and really differentiates BrokerBot. It's a fun episode. Can't wait to see you on the other side. Truth maybe is that every time you put a document in an email, that is the most vulnerable place. Scott, great to have you here. This has been a conversation, a couple months in the making. We had a conversation about BrokerBot. I think you came to me maybe 2 months ago now. And here's an opportunity for me, while I got you on the air, trapped in the recording studio, to really kind of hit the hard-hitting questions. So I'm looking forward to it. But maybe just to start, for folks who maybe don't know you, love to just hear from you kind of a bit about your background. I know you've been a kind of a sales guy your whole career. Love to hear kind of how you ended up there. Do you consider yourself a sales guy at heart? Is that your, I guess, identity? And,
Yeah,
how do you think about that? And how does it relate now to BrokerBot? And how does that experience translate?
sure. Well, thanks for having me on, Tom. Really appreciate it. And for those of you that I do know, hello. But for those of you that I don't, so my name's Scott Larter. I have a few different roles here in the lending community. I'm the Vice President of Business Development for a company called OPTA Information Intelligence. I've worked for them for 12 years, primarily focused on business development, both in the P&C insurance space and in the lending community. There's a little story that goes into some of the other roles that I have, but Opta and another organization you're probably more familiar with, First Canadian Title, we entered into a strategic partnership back in 2020 to focus on building data products for the mortgage broker, lenders, underwriters, appraisers, anyone that touched the lending, I guess, workflow. We focused on combining our data sets to build those products. So as part of that partnership, I also became the vice president of data solutions representing FCT. So I, in fact, carry two business cards.
Okay.
But really, the data information that we have is a database on about 18 million residential properties across the country. And we also have data on about 7 million commercial properties. So, that's what I've been doing the last decade or so. Previous to that, various sales roles and different types of things that I was selling from. I started my sales career at Rogers when BlackBerry first came out. I was
Okay.
I
Yeah.
was one of the guys slinging voice and data to
Nice.
smaller, medium-sized corporate businesses across Ontario. That went into working for a company called IntelliResponse, which was a knowledge-based solution. You go to a website, you type in a question, and you would get the one right answer to that question. So that moved me into a little bit more of the intangible, or selling something that you can't in fact
Yeah.
touch. From there, I was recruited into work for Opta. So, very different roles I've had along the way, but settled into data over the last little.
Yeah, well, I mean, you talk about the BlackBerry days, and that would have been exciting, I'm sure, during those days. So you talk about this transition from this physical thing where you could, I have my book here, and it's like what was the Wolf of Wall Street, where it's, sell me this pen,
Yeah.
right? Like that's so clear to anybody. And then you go into the more abstract world, which is, of course, a little bit where I live. Of course, with the CRM, it's a software product. Well, definitely abstract. And you definitely kind of went headfirst into that, especially data. Data is almost a little bit, I think, a step further maybe into the abstract. So how did you make that transition? Was it easy? Is a lot of things the same? Like, is it about the product for you? Is it about the person? How do you really think about sales, and how are you able to make that leap in your career?
It's very different from the tangible to the intangible. When I was selling Blackberries, they had just come out. Everybody knew they needed them. Nobody really understood them, but every senior executive, every salesperson loved the idea that they could have a phone and also get their email, which probably increased the number of afternoon golf games during the week and allowed somebody to get away from the office a little more and be able to respond quickly. But you're talking about, in Canada, there's really only three or four different telecom companies
Yeah.
that you could buy Blackberry from back then. So I worked for Rogers, and yes, you would talk about the features and the benefits that what a Blackberry would give, but that really didn't differentiate yourself from TELUS or Bell because they could also offer. And with telecom, it's always about pricing as well. So, it was very much trying to get in the door before the other two
Hmm.
and trying to get demo devices in the hands of the decision makers. So, you would get a Blackberry in their hands, you would actually hook up their email and their phone to it, and they would be able to use it for 2 or 3 weeks like they normally would. And like so many of us with our mobile devices, hopefully you get hooked, and then it comes down to the right plans that would fit, whether it was for the entire company or for one or two of them. But, when you get into the world of intangible, you can't touch it, you can't feel it.
Yeah.
And you think about how far back we've gone in sales, hundreds of years, it's evolved over time. Like it used to be features, features, features. Then it became benefits, benefits, benefits. And, now when you listen to podcasts, when you read books, it's all about being that trusted advisor,
Yep.
using these more than using this to be able to listen, to uncover opportunities, goals, and problems. And there's all sorts of questions that you can ask. But when you get into the world of data can be used in so many different ways. I mean,
Yeah.
it can be used to pre-fill forms. It can be used in marketing. It can be used in risk. It can be used in so many different departments. So obviously, the person you're talking to, you have to figure out what they care about. And I always think about there's 3 reasons people buy. They save me time, save me money, or make me look good. Any reason they buy
Yeah.
comes back to one of those three. And so really you're trying to figure out who it is you're selling to, what problem they're trying to solve, and what is important to them. Do they want to save time, save money, or do they want to look good early in their job or new to their job or new department or whatever it might be? So
Yep.
it's really just focusing and listening and trying to piece together a solution or a partnership of solutions that meets their needs. So I hope
Right.
that helps a little bit.
Well, for sure, it's those three things. And it's probably that third one more than we think, right? Making us look good, right? That vanity side of things. So more than we like to admit. But yeah, in my world, what I was getting at is you hear a lot this concept of like, a vitamin versus a painkiller, right? So yeah, you were talking about, okay, back in the day, it was feature, feature, feature. So, the pen is blue, right? If we're using the Wolf of Wall Street again. And then it's, benefit, benefit, benefit. Okay, you can write with it, right? And that's more of a vitamin. Okay, I can write. That's great.
Yeah.
And really what they say in the software world, if you can find that painkiller, right? So, holy shit, I need to write this check, but I don't have anything to do it.
Urgency.
That's a pain,
Yeah.
right? That's painful. So that's the world I grew up in was, hey, find that painkiller, not that vitamin. And it sounds like even coming from the BlackBerry world and the data world, it's not too different.
One of the marketing, and this is going back 10 years ago, and I'm trying to remember who it was. I went to a speaker who talked very specifically about marketing and sales and messaging and things like that. And he talked about a story. He was rebranding a company who builds all the racking systems that you would see in like a Home Depot or you'd see in a Lowe's or a
Yeah.
Rona. And there's a couple different companies that compete to when a new Home Depot opens up, they go in and try and put their racking systems in. And he talked about the marketing and sales pitch and how he rebranded this company. And it was not just about the 25 years they've been in business, they use the strongest materials, blah, 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 blah. It came right down to what is the biggest pain point when a new Home Depot was going to be built?
Mm.
It was about opening on time
Yeah.
because with all the investment that goes into a new location, oftentimes it gets pushed back 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, months, and maybe even years.
Yeah.
And their whole thing was come with us because we'll let you open sooner. And the open sooner was the Dutch phrase
Yeah.
that made me look good, right? And it saved time and probably saved revenues and we're able to make money. So to me, it resonated a lot because you almost got to put yourself in the seat of the other person to
Yeah.
say what is it that they're ultimately looking for in any solution, whether it's a CRM, whether it's a data product, or a combination of which. I mean, there's a way to build urgency, and it's just understanding their business, like we're all trying to figure out.
Yeah. Having that empathy. And it's so easy to get caught up in the other way because, for me, I've spent years of my life building a CRM, and probably that person, I spent hours and hours and days in finding the perfect material and the perfect structure. And you want so badly just to talk about that. But at the end of the day, you don't care about that. People care about their problems. They don't care about your problems. So yeah, I think that's a great mindset. So maybe let's get right into it here. I alluded to at the beginning, kind of where this whole conversation was BrokerBot. And Maybe you could frame it a bit in the context of what we were just talking about, which was, was it a painkiller or a vitamin that you were looking to kind of bring to the market? What was the problem you were looking to solve? And yeah, what's the elevator pitch on, what is the solution? This is the part where I said I'm putting you in the hot seat here. So yeah, yeah.
And, there's a little story that goes with this. So, as I mentioned earlier, I work for a data company. My job is to go out and sell various data elements to the market, whether it's property data, whether it's risk analytics, whether it's market values on homes. You look where OPTA plays today. We pre-fill mortgage applications through companies like Velocity and
Hmm.
Scarlet Networks. We're integrated into the loan origination systems like Intellify and into Fundmore.
Oh, okay.
We're plumbed into a lot of the pretty much every AMC here in Canada where you can get access to our AVM and other data elements. We're playing in B15 now with wildfire and flood analytics and trying to help lenders understand the risk within their book, but also as they bring on new business. When you think about all those different departments that I was selling in, a lot of it's underwriting, you're selling to brokerages, to technology, to the risk department. you know, all great, but what are other departments? Part of my job in selling data is what other departments do we have out there that have budget and that have a need? And marketing was one that really, I was excited about. And so with the data that we had brought out into the market, I said, well, surely the marketing departments would love to use this data as well, whether it's for target marketing or improving, their user experience or application experience or whatever it might be. So started reaching out to marketing departments from, the biggest banks in Canada down to smaller offerings across the country and started saying, hey, we've got all this data, we can help you target market. But one of the ways that I think we can really help is when you think about the success that real estate values have helped the real estate community with offerings like Zillow and the Zestimate. We've
Mm,
seen House Stigma and a few others. There's a lot more AVM providers for lead generation for real estate agents in the States, but we're starting to
mhm,
see more and more of them pop up here in Canada. With the success of using real estate values, why don't we try a similar approach, but using market values to generate leads for the lending side of the business, which was a very interesting topic, booked a lot of meetings, had a lot of discussions. The other angle was when you think about how Credit Karma and Borrowwell over the last few
mm,
years have used credit score as a way to use a hook. So the combination of the product idea that I had in mind was using home values as a lead generation or engagement tool, leveraging their brand versus mine. So at this point, BrokerBot hadn't been created. It was still me, a
yeah.
data guy going out and try and sell different products into the market. So, the big pitch for me was you're already using our AVM as a tool to lend against. We're giving you market values that is being used through your AMC, or you're pulling it as part of underwriting or whatever it might be. Why not use the same value to generate leads? And that way there's less bait and switch and things like that we often see in the marketplace. They all thought it was a fantastic idea until
Okay.
they asked, okay, how do we deploy? And I said,
Yeah.
well, again, I'm just the data provider. I have all the
I'm just the
information
data guy.
you need.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
You have to build an integration. You need to build an API that connects to ours, and you'll handle the client experience and the branding and all that stuff. And really, I'm just powering it with data. Well, no matter how exciting the conversation was, at that point, this isn't a priority, don't have resources, don't have the time, we're working on other things. This is going back 8 or 9 months ago when
Yeah.
when the market was just wonderful back then, when they hadn't started reducing interest rates and we were paying the peak amount at that point. So there was a lot of other challenges that were top of mind, but they loved the concept. So I kind of took that away and was a little bit frustrated knowing how many mortgage renewals were coming up in the next few years in
So
Canada,
many.
knowing that, everyone's going to be looking for different offerings, maybe better rates or more flexibility, or including new homes being built, new Canadians coming in, just a lot of opportunity for this. And really put it on the shelf for a while. And I sit on a couple of boards in the market. And one of the boards that I was on, that I am on, I started venting that I really had this awesome idea
Yeah.
I wish one of the banks would take on because I think it would be great. And so my partner said, well, tell me about it. And I walked him through kind of,
Yeah.
high level, a solution that would be white labeled, which means that you can quickly add your own logos and branding and focused on the broker, the real estate agent, the lender, whoever it might
Whoever. Hmm.
be. It uses accurate market values as a way to capture leads, keep leads engaged, convert leads and retain customers. And we kind of talked about what Credit Karma looks like and what Borrowell looks like and what some of the other offerings in the market is. And he said, I think that's a great idea. And in fact, I've got half of that built because he works on digital platforms in the insurance space.
Okay.
It was very similar to, digitally binding an insurance policy. How could we do that, but use market values and use it as a marketing tool? So it's funny. He said, I've got an investor coming into my office next week. Do you think you could put together 5 or 6 slides on what this idea looks like? And we'll pitch them.
Yeah.
And, scrambled to put, some stats together, what's going on in the market, why I thought it was a great idea, put my 6 slides together. We didn't get past the second slide. And he's like, I'm in. So,
Yeah.
That was the birth of BrokerBot was, getting validation from the market that I had something.
Yeah.
An idea, and then being in the right place at the right time from a technology perspective. And here we are about 6 months in on a journey that, I've never been a business owner. I've never been the CEO of a company.
Yeah.
My job with OPTA, my job with FCT is going out and hunting and finding new business. I'm, often doing this early in the morning for BrokerBot or late at night. I'm learning an absolute ton of what it's like to own a business and control a product and work with a team. And
Yeah.
very different experience, we'll put it that way.
Sure. Well, it's quite the story. What's highlighting to me, or what's interesting to me, was the difference, I guess, maybe between, you talk about in the story how, okay, you're going to these lending departments, these mortgage departments, and okay, it's not a priority right now. Okay, we're looking at something else. But hey, this investor here, you didn't get past slide 2 or however you put it. And, there's that contrast there. So I'm just, I guess curious that going through that journey for you, why do you think there was such a difference? Like, what do you think is, the mindset of, someone in a marketing department in a lender somewhere versus that investor? Is it simply an appetite for risk? Is it other things? And now that you're on the other side, kind of gotten through that investor presentation, now this thing, do you still face those same roadblocks? Are you still feeling that when you go back to those same marketing departments and say, hey, that thing that you said had no priority for, well, I've gone and done this. Do you still feel that same kind of pushback, or is it now a lot more conducive conversation where they say, hey, there's people out there who have been able to, put some skin in the game, taken that risk, and now that risk is a bit easier for me, but also makes me realize, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not going to be the only person who, is taking this leap of faith a little bit. So a couple of different parts there, but what are your thoughts on that?
I think before I was just going to everybody because, a lot of companies that use our data, they've already validated the accuracy of our AVM from OPTA. They're already using our data to pre-fill mortgage applications, or their underwriting teams were already using it. So before I was just going to, companies large and small that were already using our data. Now it's a little bit more strategic because, you may only have one shot with some of these companies.
Sure.
So, the place that I started was more the mortgage broker, smaller lenders that are customer facing, meaning they're not dealing with a broker because they have that brand, and real estate agents. And thankfully, I have friends in all 3 of those categories. So, was more about what's important to you. What are you lacking today? Are there things in the market that you wish you could use, but you can't? And we kind of went through that whole life cycle of the product. The companies that we've signed on today are very much taking the approach of lead generation and lead conversion. So going back to what BrokerBot is a white labeled solution that focuses on generating leads using market values of homes. So you're probably familiar with websites out there where you can type your address in, they capture your lead information, and they provide a market value on your home. That tends to focus more on the real estate community.
Yep.
Generates leads for real estate agents. No one was doing it in the lending space, or at that time. I know there's a few other players that are creeping in now. But the other piece of it is that monthly update. So not only generating leads, can we take that lead and can we send them monthly updates of the increased value of their home? Hopefully not decreased, hopefully now increased value of the home month over month. And, the big focus for us was, let's put your brand front and center. Let's make sure that it's the broker's logo, their colors, it's their headshots, their contact information, their call to action, like constantly bringing people back to you and not to us. I don't have a website where
Sure.
anyone can go and search and you create an account and, like you would some of these other digital real estate websites that you can see in the market. That's not our offering. Our offering is focused on the customer, using their branding, their reviews, their videos, whatever they want to add to that, fully branded monthly update, and getting that, hey, log in or click here because the value of your home has been updated. And for me, it's about engagement. We are just providing a hook. We are providing a carrot saying, hey, we want your attention, come here. We're doing that with home values. You, the broker, you, the lender, what are you going to do now? I call it re-engagement. So RE, real estate, re-engagement of your customers. Because if you can keep them coming back, so if somebody applied for a HELOC, they need $100,000. They probably need $100,000 in a month from now as well. And then in 2 months from now. So keeping your brand in front of them until they are ready to go, you can do that through using accurate market values. The same thing with your current customer.
Sure.
When you think about all the renewals coming up in the next few years, for those that are going to be asleep at the wheel, you could lose a large portion of your portfolio to other more aggressive offerings in the market, like the big banks who you can see the market
super aggressive
on. Rate's going to win in a lot of these cases. So how do you separate yourself? How do you provide a sticky solution to keep your customers engaged with you? Some brokers use video. There's different ways of doing this. This to me is an automated message that will go out through a CRM every single month and bring people back to your offering, getting them to pick up the phone, click on a button, continue the application process. And we're doing that using the same market values as you're making decisions on. It's not like we're saying the house is worth 1.2 million. Then they go and they borrow. And, obviously there's different AVMs and different appraisers out there, but we're going to be a lot closer than if you're using one AVM provider and another one. There's a lot of bait and switch I'm about. So
yeah, and what you're saying, bait and switch, is kind of, okay, hey, your home is 1.2 million, great, okay, we're going to with the process application, do all the things, and then we get the AVM back from the lender, and no, it's actually worth 900,000, but okay, what just happened there? And now I'm so far in, and I've made plans and assumptions based on this. That's not the experience you want. And I think first of all, you're exactly right about, it's a completely different paradigm now versus it was in, 2021, if that's what we're going to compare 2020, 2021. And those are a lot of the renewals coming up because a lot of people took 3-year fixed, So, back then it was just kind of, hey, getting it through because there was just so much volume. It was just, hey, okay, I get a deal and I got to process this. But yeah, it's completely different. You're right. The lenders are way more aggressive now with their rate. And really, you can't compete on rate, I think, in a lot of cases. I was talking to one guy last week. He said, I'm actually just charging a fee. I'm saying, hey, Mr. Borrower, this is a broker, but I'm just going to say, hey, pay me $1,000. I'll just find you the best rate because I know I don't have it. I have all the contacts at all the banks. I'll go around and I'll ask them all. So it's completely different.
Isn't that their job anyway?
Well, yeah, I know, right? But yeah, I mean, without going there, but what that shows, though, I think is something you said at the beginning about, having to be that trusted advisor, right? Where it's like, hey, I'm not going to do something that's just in my best interest. I'm going to be that advisor, that person who's going to help you with this transaction, but the next one, but the next one. And the more you can have these types of conversations, these data-driven, insightful conversations that maybe a home value can start, the better off you're going to be. And you could be the one eating that person who is asleep at the wheel. You could be eating their lunch too. It's a double-edged sword, right? I think that, yeah, if you're sleeping, you might be in trouble, but if you're awake and you're using tech and you're doing the right things, you also have the opportunity to grow. So I wanted to switch gears just a little bit, Scott. We've kind of danced around it a bunch, but I want to kind of get to the heart of the issue of data. So obviously you have a history of data. Transparently, I've chatted with, and I think I've told you this, other folks kind of doing something similar-ish. Everyone's kind of got a slightly different offering, but, I think in those conversations, data always comes up. So talk to me a little bit about data in your mind. First of all, how important is it? You just talked about that bait and switch. So yeah, I think in your mind, maybe it is important, but maybe expanding on that. And how do you see yourself in the marketplace as it relates to data and kind of your confidence with that and all that? So two-parter there of, hey, how important is it? And where do you kind of see your solution as it relates to the others?
Great question. So BrokerBot is fully powered by the OPTA data. So it's, I haven't gone out and tried to get other data sources. Like, to me, I believe in the Opta data so much that I could build an offering like BrokerBot around it. And, I think when you look at the data environment in Canada, it's a very different animal in the States. There's a lot more data providers. The licensing on data is quite a bit different. But, in Canada, when you look at data providers, before Opta got into the lending world, you've got a few that you can get in BC. There wasn't many in Alberta, not many in Saskatchewan, not many in Manitoba, a few options in Ontario, I think one option in Quebec, and the Atlantic, there wasn't many offerings at all. So, when we entered into the financial services industry in 2018, we were the only national provider of property data in the market. So that to us was a massive opportunity. And for those of you that don't know where Opta came from, we come from the insurance industry.
Yeah.
Opta was launched 13, 14 years ago, but leveraged data from our inspection business and our claims adjustment business that was formerly called Claims Pro and RMS. We now call it Opta Precise, our inspection business. But, we built a database that focused on actual inspections of homes. So for those that know the appraisal world, like these are appraisers that go inside. A home inspector on behalf of insurance companies, the same thing. They go inside, they measure the house, they count bedrooms and bathrooms, but their job is to uncover risks. What could lead to a claim? So we're getting data from actual inspections going back to the mid 80s. So, when you look at today, when you do a home insurance quote, you go to your insurance broker, you go to, TD Insurance, RBC Insurance, Sonnet Insurance, Bel Air Direct. There's a bunch of different offerings that you can have in the market. You can go to an aggregator like, Rate Hub or Forest Rates. There's all these different ones. We are the data that powers all of those quotes. So it's a solution called iClarify that's offered by Opta. And, when we first got into the insurance world, I remember 12 years ago when I first started with Opta, and to get an insurance quote, you would have to pick up the phone and talk to a broker. And you'd be on the phone with them for an hour and a half, and they'd ask you all sorts of questions about your house that you didn't know the answer. How many square feet? Do you include the basement? Do you not? What's the percentage of carpet to hardwood to tile? They'd ask you to look at your front window. Yeah. How close is your closest fire hydrant? It would be a miserable hour and a half. And guess what? If you want a second quote, you got to do it again. You want a third quote, you got to go and do it again.
Yeah.
That is where we were 12 years ago in the insurance space. Today, you can go online right now and get a fully bound insurance policy.
I do everything through Sonnet.
Well, perfect example.
Yeah.
So, they only ask you the questions that they need answers for because they don't already know the answers. And, the Sonnet example, and if anyone's seen their TV commercial where the guy's disco dancing across the street, how many steps it is to their hydrant, they're making fun of that because we're the data provider. We've geocoded every fire hall. We've geocoded every lat and long, for anyone that doesn't know what a geocode is. We've captured where all the hydrants and all the fire halls and everything that they require. It's a data point they just pull. They don't ask it anymore. Yeah. So when you think about the insurance world 10, 15 years ago, where it is today, the user and customer experience has improved really for three reasons. One, technology's improved. Number two, data's improved. The accuracy and availability of data has improved. And number three, risk tolerance. So through those three things, you've improved customer experience. I know I went off topic a little bit, but
no, it's good, the background, right? And it's
accuracy of data. You can build the greatest CRM. You could build the greatest widget, the best mousetrap.
Garbage in, garbage out is what I always say, right? It's we do
go on quickly because it's flashy and new and looks good. But if there's nothing behind that, that's
no substance,
going to provide any value. And to me, that's what the data is all about, whether you're pre-filling a mortgage application, providing an appraiser information so that they can do their job faster, saving an underwriter a few minutes of time. We know that that can be accomplished because we prove it year and year again, being in the insurance and now the lending community. Our API on the Opta side, that's called almost 80,000 times a day right now.
No kidding.
Across the country. So it's leveraging information that has been proven and validated and is used by all different parts of the lending workflow, and just adding one more area to it, and which is marketing. So if you're marketing, generating leads using the same data that a broker is using for their mortgage application, that the underwriter is using to underwrite, that the appraiser is using, or the ABM provider, as well as the mortgage insurer. When I think digital mortgage, I think the data is a big piece of that. It's not just the speed of the engine in the background. It's making sure that you don't have things that are telling you different stories throughout. And
Hmm.
that is where I think the power of BrokerBot is it leverages a data source that is trusted, validated, and used by a large portion of the community. So it's not a new data provider. It's leveraging the same data, but for another use case. So I hope that explains
Yeah.
where it came from.
Yeah, no, absolutely does. And I was going to ask you that at the beginning when you talked about Opta coming from the insurance side of things. And I mean, it makes sense too. And also, with insurance providers, I would say maybe just as much, maybe more, maybe less. You probably know best, but the importance of getting it right is right there with, the actual mortgage, getting that right. Because, yeah, you could be insuring the whole value of the house, right? So that's a big number. And if you take that across all of Canada and, if you're off by 10% or 20% or 30%, that could be a huge, loss on your books, right? So
Oh, yeah.
that's why I picked it up. I said, okay, where's the similarities between insurance and mortgage?
Here's one more differentiator from the data is, when we build an API, Opta, when we build an API integration into an insurance offering, our job as a data aggregator is to put the most accurate profile of a home in front of the user, whoever that user might be for whatever that use case. Based on everything we know about that house and based on everything we know about that neighborhood, here is the year built we think it is, square footage, bedrooms, bathrooms, all those things. And ultimately, we provide a market value based on that information. In the insurance world, if you recently finished your basement, you're going to tell your insurance company you did that because you want to make sure that
It's
you're
covered.
properly covered.
Yeah.
So anytime our data is updated, we capture that data. We capture that change. So there's a number of ways that our data sets continue to improve in accuracy. We're the largest collector of permits in Canada. We get about 30,000 residential and commercial building permits. We get aerial imagery from planes that fly over Canada once or twice a year. We have drone companies that we partner with that are more on demand where they can go get it. Plus, we've got inspections. Like, there's all these different ways and different data sources that we get it. All of our R&D, all of our time, all goes into marketing calls it. It's the best data ever. So that is our goal, is to consistently focus on having the most accurate data possible. Now, when you look at models, data science models, all these different things, I look at a model like a recipe. You can have the greatest recipe in the world, but if the ingredients that you're using aren't great ingredients and you're trying to, build that recipe, it's just not going to be as good as if you have better quality. So, why BrokerBot? It's the same data that's being used in the market. The reason it's being used is because of its level of accuracy and the fact that, Opta / FCT were easy to work with, we're fun to work with, we're innovative, and we're going to continue doing that. And BrokerBot is just another way of selling that data into a department that we weren't traditionally working in.
Yeah.
That's really all it is.
Data for us. And we're not on the properties across Canada scale, but we're at a CRM scale. And we always think of it two things. Okay, it's your initial source. Okay, I'm getting the data. But equally as important is how often or how are you updating it?
Yeah.
Because I always say the minute you've uploaded your data initially to the CRM, it's already stale. It's already too old. So what's even more important is not, okay, where did it come from, but where is it going to be coming from into the future, right? I think that's so important.
You bring up a really good point, Tom. And another piece of all of this, whether we're talking about data providers or BrokerBot, now you've got in your CRM, you've got a list of addresses that you've added. So that might have been through leads that you've bought. That might have been leads that have come from BrokerBot. That may have been accounts that you've added in. So the other element that we bring to the table is the idea of portfolio monitoring.
Mm-hmm.
And what portfolio monitoring is there's opportunities in your book to convert leads and cross-sell and retain customers. What we do as part of the solution is for any address that's added into BrokerBot, we can, as one of our product offerings, we can monitor it for real estate activity and permit activity. Mm-hmm. So if you have a lead that you haven't converted yet, and we flag that their house hit the market, that's a great opportunity for you to pick up the phone. And I don't know if I'd necessarily say, hey, I've got this tool that told
I drove by, I saw the sign.
And I saw for sale sign I'd like to talk to you about. So we'll have it in front of the broker or whoever's using the service. You'll know within a week of that house actually hitting the market. So that's great for retention. Somebody who's a current customer of yours and you see that their house has hit the market, get out in front of that as early as you can. But obviously on the lead side, we can help you convert it because you're getting in front of them at the best possible time, which is when they put their house on the market. Mm-hmm. The other one is permits. So I mentioned earlier, we bring in roughly 30,000 residential building permits across the country on a monthly basis, working with several different municipalities. And if we know that they pulled a permit on, September 1st for a pool,
Sure.
that's a great opportunity
Right
for
now.
you to wait
Yeah.
until that pool is completed and we know when that permit closes. That's a great HELOC opportunity. But
Sure.
what if the permit is pulled for a new build or a demolition? Maybe you want to get in touch with them earlier, because then you can try and sell that construction loan or whatever it might be. So it's just different ways of using data. And you go back to your, how do you come up with products? This is just listening and trying to figure out, how can I tell the broker something that's going on in their book that they otherwise either wouldn't be able to find themselves, or would have to be typing in every address in realtor.ca to be able to
Which
do it.
no one will ever do.
And
Yeah.
they've got hundreds and thousands of people, too much time being spent on that. So if I can flag that, that to me saves them time, right? And
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it solves their problem, right? And, we go back to that. But I think ultimately, like the next level thing, the inception level is if you can help the broker help the borrower, right? If you're helping and there's a borrower problem and you're able through, 2 layers, maybe through the broker, solve that problem, that's where you're really driving value and building trust. We talk about trust a bunch this call, and that's exactly it. So, Scott, we're getting on time here. Really, really appreciate this. Is a fun convo. Love chatting with you. Always learn something. So maybe just to wrap up, if anyone listening, wants to hear a little bit more, what's the best way they can get in touch with you?
well, the website I'm sure you're going to be putting out there is www.brokerbot.ca. My email at BrokerBot is scott@thebrokerbot.ca. Find me on LinkedIn. If we're already connected, reach out. There's different ways it can be deployed, whether it's BrokerBot or directly through an API. Like, there's different ways that we can do it, but would love to hear from you. Would love to hear some of your goals over the next little while. And
yeah,
we can put something together that makes you more money, saves you more time, and makes you look great in front of everyone. So
there you go.
Whole circle.
Yeah. From my 2 cents, Scott, in our conversations, you've always been flexible to that, right? Kind of going back all the way back to what you're saying of, really listen to people and, finding a solution that works for them. So yeah, please do reach out to anyone listening. But thanks again, Scott. This was fun. We'll chat soon.
Pleasure, Tom. Thanks a lot for having me, buddy. Have a good day. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.